On today's show, we explore how one film inspired a dream trip over 10 years in the making, the magical movie moments from my cinematic adventure through Vancouver and the Canadian Rockies, and why films, TV shows, books, and stories can sometimes become the catalyst for the most unforgettable experiences of our lives. So, grab your popcorn, get comfy, and silence your inner critic because it's time to Movify your life, Canadian Rockies style. Welcome to the Movify Your Life show, the plot twist you've been waiting for. I'm your host, Jessica Grace Coleman, and through the Movify Your Life method, I'll show you how to step into the starring role of your story and create a life worth watching. Every Movify Monday, you'll learn how to turn everyday moments into unforgettable memories, activate your main character energy, and use cinematic tools to boldly chase your biggest dreams, like the movie star you truly are. Because when the credits roll, I want you to look back at your life like it's the greatest film ever made, full of meaning, magic, and most importantly, zero regrets. And because I truly believe everyone deserves to live an epic life fit for the big screen. So grab your popcorn, cue the music, and together, let's Movify your life. Hello, and welcome to the Movify Your Life show. I'm your host, Jess, and today I'm talking all about my Movified Canadian Rockies adventure, the Banff trip I dreamed about for years, and the whole thing was cinematic AF, as I say, and I knew it would be, so I had already planned to do an episode about this, but I want to take you day by day through my itinerary, because maybe you would like to do a similar trip. I know it's one of those places that people dream about going for years, but it can be pretty pricey, depending on where you're coming from, obviously. I was coming from the UK, so just to fly over there, it was a bit pricey. But actually, once we got there, it wasn't too bad because of the exchange rate. Basically, one of our Great British pounds became $2 Canadian. So every time we looked at a menu or something, we'd first go, oh my God, and then be like, no, wait, halve it. But then you have to add tax and tip. So there is that. I would recommend, I think we tipped 20% everywhere we went for like everything. So tipping culture is a big thing in Canada, not quite as much as in the US. I think, I could be wrong, but I think the tipping is more than 20% now, but I might have got that wrong. But I would say if you are going on a trip like this, have your budget and then add 20% because you are going to be tipping for everything, which is fine. I don't mind doing it, but just remember that. But I had such an amazing time. I've been back in the UK a week now, and I was very jet lagged. Well, I know it's getting worse as I'm getting older. I think it doesn't help because it's usually a night flight coming back, and I haven't yet got to the point in my life where I can pay for business class or first class. It is a goal of mine, especially on a night flight, because I just cannot sleep in economy. And those seats are just awful, so I don't get any sleep on the way back. And then you're obviously trying to reacclimatize to the UK time. So I usually try and stay up and then go to bed. And I think I managed to stay up for like 48 hours straight. And then I went to bed for like 4 hours and then woke up starving because I was still on Canadian time and I'd missed a meal. I don't know. And then I couldn't get back to sleep for several hours after that. But then I slept again for like 8 or 9 hours. So a good amount in total. But since then, I've been going to bed at like 3 a.m. I just haven't been able to sleep before that and then getting up later than usual. So I'm slowly getting back into the routine, work-wise and just being generally awake and alive-wise. But it was so worth it. I had the best time. I worked with my friends Vicky and Ruth. I've talked about this on the podcast before, but I've had Banff National Park in particular on my list for over 10 years, ever since I watched a film called The Right Kind of Wrong, which I've talked about before. And it was set in Banff and Canmore, that area, Banff National Park, Alberta, Canada. And as soon as I saw that film, I added it to my travel bucket list and it was right at the top. But as I go solo traveling a lot, I couldn't justify the price on my own. There are a few hostels and things, but I'm beyond the age where I want to stay in a hostel with like loads of people in a dorm. And I couldn't justify the price of like all the accommodation and the car rental and stuff like that on my own. So when my friend Vicky said, I'm planning a trip to Vancouver, Banff and Jasper, would you like to come? I was like, hell yes. There was 3 of us. We would stay in a hotel room with like 2 queen beds. So we were splitting the hotel room cost between three of us. We rented a car, hired a car, and which was amazing. I got a big shiny red Jeep Wrangler, my dream car. I used the Turo app, Turo. This is not an ad, but I love it. And basically individuals, some companies as well, but individuals put their cars on there that you can rent, car rental, hire. I know we use hire in the UK, but I don't think you do in some other countries. I'm not sure. Then that means they have their own cars renting out. So you can pick your exact make, model, colour, like the exact car you want. You can search for that, see what's available. And it's just a better experience. I've had so many experiences at these big franchise branch car rental places, all the big ones. And some have been fine. Most have been terrible, like really bad customer service. They charge you up the wazoo, or whatever the phrase is, for everything, then usually whack you with more charges. They don't have the car you asked for. They often don't have any cars available at all. I've had that happen to me. There's just like no control. I feel like no control over the vehicle you're going to end up with, if you're even going to end up with one. I've also been there when I've been waiting around for hours. So it's just not a nice experience. So I decided to use Turo the year before last. No, last year. Oh my gosh, time. I did it when I went to Arizona. That was only for like a day and a half, but I got a Barbie pink Jeep Wrangler. There were no red ones, Movify red ones in the area, but the Barbie car was amazing. And then I basically said to my friends, I'm coming as long as we can rent a shiny red Jeep Wrangler for the trip. And my friend Vicky had already done the entire itinerary, which was amazing because while I do love planning holidays and the anticipation around it and stuff, it takes a lot of time. So for someone to have done all that was incredible. And then I went along and modified it because all hers was public transport based. And I was like, we're going to have a car. So I went through and sort of changed a few things. But it was great to split the cost of that between three people, like the actual rental price and the gas as well. So I knew I had to go. It wasn't particularly right timing for me. I could have done with another year or two to really save up for this, honestly, because it was top of my travel bucket list. I knew I couldn't say no when my friend said she was going. So I was like, yeah, I've just got to make this happen. I've got to make it work no matter what. And we had the best time. I love lakes and mountains. I love shiny red Jeeps, as I've said. I love animals. And this was a very wildlife oriented trip. And I just really needed that time away from my laptop. I usually take my laptop with me and work while I'm traveling, especially if I'm solo traveling. But when you're with friends, it kind of feels a bit rude. And I just really needed a break from the screen, from my work, and just to be in nature and to just do awesome things. So I couldn't wait to go. We flew out on the 1st of May and it was a special holiday because like I say, I've been wanting to do this for over 10 years and I wasn't sure I'd ever really get there. But over the past few years, I've made myself go and do things that I either didn't think I'd do or that I promised myself I would do, but I keep putting off. So I was like, no, I'm going. I didn't keep it like a diary, but I made little notes of what we did every day so I wouldn't forget. I made notes of like some in-jokes, which I may or may not reveal because they might not make much sense to you, but they were very funny to us. And so it was a good holiday of like hanging out with friends and laughing. And I think that in itself can be quite healing and relaxing. So I'm going to go through the diary and then I'm going to go through some sort of like lessons learnt and thoughts about life that this trip brought about, basically. Okay, so if you don't know, Banff National Park is in the Canadian Rocky Mountains, as is Jasper. But first we flew to Vancouver for a few days. Vicky had been there before and really liked it. And we knew we wouldn't need a car there. So we flew to Vancouver, me and Ruth from Heathrow. My friend Vicky lives in Northern Ireland, so she made her own way there and got there a day after us. And we went to Vancouver first. We didn't hire the Jeep until we got to Banff. So, flew into Vancouver, quite tired, got an Uber. Thank God for Uber. They didn't have Uber in most of the national parks, obviously, but they had it in Vancouver. So we made the most of being in a city and having easy access to cars. We flew over, got an Uber to the Belmont Hotel, which is like this quite small boutique-y hotel. Apparently where Michael Bublé got his start, as we learnt on a later tour as we drove past it. The room was very small. And as I say, there were 3 of us sharing. Only 2 that first night. But our suitcases were exploded everywhere and we messaged Vicky, we were like, we have no idea where you're going to put your stuff, let alone you. So that was interesting. But it was a very nice hotel. We were in the middle of all like the pubs and clubs and we were right next to an Irish bar, so it was noisy. The double glazing in the room worked really well, but once you went into the bathroom, you could hear everything. And that would go on to like 3 or 4, 5 a.m. even in the week. but good location. We went to a nearby grocery store to get some food because we were too tired to go out for dinner. Then went back to the room and just ate and then slept, basically. And I've made a note of cinematic AF, at least one cinematic AF thing, event, memory, image in my mind that happened every day because I knew I would be doing a podcast episode about it. And I wanted to show you that trips can be cinematic, but daily life can be cinematic as well. But like these kind of things really, really make you feel like you're in a movie. So I made a note of cinematic AF things, at least one a day. And the first one, we didn't do much, but as we flew over the Canadian Rocky Mountains, I took loads of videos and photos out the window. Me and Ruth got 2 seats together. The plane was like 2 seats, then 4, then 2. So we didn't have to have a stranger next to us. And I could lean over and see the plane window really well. And just the snowy, frosty mountains. Because it was May, but it was still very snowy on the mountain tops. They looked incredible. It was just mind-blowingly beautiful. And that was a sort of magical movie moment for me. It was cinematic AF. I took loads of pictures and videos, as I mentioned. I'll put a video on my Instagram at some point at Movify Your Life and on Facebook, Movify Your Life. And that was my cinematic AF moment from Friday the 1st. Okay, so Saturday the 2nd, we went down for breakfast, which was in the Irish bar. So the hotel was next to the Irish bar. You could get to it inside, and that's where breakfast was. And then we did our favourite thing. We went shopping. We were waiting for Vicky to appear because she was flying out like a day after us. So we went down to the sort of harbour area, the docks, where all the big cruise ships leave from. It was beautifully sunny. We wandered around there, loads of tourists everywhere. Then we went to Gastown, which was our favourite area. Lots of really cute shops, boutique-y shops, touristy shops, restaurants, bars, everything. And it's called Gastown because of the guy who founded it, I believe. We learnt about that on a tour, but we learned so many things that it's all gone out of my head now. But it is also famous for having this steaming clock, which looks very magical and movified. And the clock itself was cinematic AF, one of my cinematic AF moments. Just beautifully ornate clock. It looks like something out of Harry Potter. Steam constantly coming out of it, and then every 15 minutes it does this little tune and more steam comes out of it, and everyone takes pictures and waits for it to go off. We had lunch, and when Vicky appeared, we had lunch right next to the steaming clock at a restaurant there. More shopping, and then we went on a hop-on, hop-off bus, which took forever because of the terrible traffic in Vancouver. I think it was because there was a marathon on. I don't think it's usually that bad, but it was a good bus, but they kept playing, they play the information over the speakers, and they kept sort of cutting it off to go on to the next one. So you'd get like half a fact and then it would cut off and go to something else. And you'd be like, I have no idea what they were saying about the clock then. We went past a restaurant called Cheese Slap, which made me laugh. And then we had made reservations at this bar that I'd found online beforehand. I Googled cool bars in Vancouver or something, but we missed that reservation because the traffic was so bad. We got there like an hour and a half late. So instead of having a table, we just had to sit at the bar, but that was fine. We just had sort of snacks and drinks. It's called Arcana Bar, and it's one of those sort of hidden speakeasy type ones. The exterior of the bar is decorated to look like a pet psychic shop, which was pretty cool. I had a Cthulhu cocktail, which was dry ice and a very cool Cthulhu-shaped, can't really call it a glass. I'm not sure what you would call it, with dry ice going everywhere. The coasters were like Ouija board planchette things. Everything was themed sort of gothic-y. It was just really, really cool. But they gave us like little tarot cards with our drinks. And this is where things get a bit spooky. Vicky had an Empress card. I don't know if it was me or Vicky. It had like a devil on. And everywhere we went, we kept seeing devil, like, or Deville, or it was just everywhere. And Ruth had a card, which was like a tower and two skeletons falling from it with a crown falling off. And we kept seeing crowns everywhere after that. And this is one of those psychological things. Of course, you're going to see it if you're looking out for it. We use the Merlin app a lot on a holiday because we love collecting birds like Pokemon. You've got to catch them all. And a lot of them had crown in the name. And we were like, ooh. In terms of the tower, straight after that, we went to the flyover, the Vancouver flyover, which was really cool. It's like this immersive experience. You sit in these chairs and sort of fly out a little bit. And then the chairs sort of move up and down while this like immersive, huge kind of IMAX-y screen flies you around Canada, various places. And it was amazing. I did feel slightly sick because I just had the Cthulhu cocktail. So probably shouldn't have done that. But it was really, really cool. flying over all these things. Like if you went over water or snow, then you'd get sort of like watery, like spray in your face. It was kind of immersive. But there was one bit where you go up the tower. I think it might have been the Toronto Tower, which I have been in. And then you fall down from the tower. And we were like, oh my God, it's like the tarot card. And we did have a chance in Calgary later on to go up the tower, which looks exactly like the Toronto Tower. They have like a restaurant and glass floor and all the stuff they usually get. And me and Ruth were like, let's not tempt fate, just in case that tarot card is trying to warn us something. So that was quite funny. We also got really random fortunes in our fortune cookies, like Vancouver-based fortunes. Mine was about stepping back from a seawall and counting backwards or something. It was very weird. And then after that, we went to see the digital orca, which is like a pixelated statue of an orca whale. And it was a bit weird because we took a selfie in front of there, and it caught a bird flying past and it pixelated the bird as well. I'm not joking. It looked like the bird had sort of separated into two different bits, like thing going wrong with my phone camera. But we were like, what is going on? The creepy tarot cards, digital birds. We were still quite tired as well from the travel. So we were like, I don't know what's going on. But anyway, that day, cinematic AF was the flyover was really magical. There was like music and you were literally flying over all these stunning landscapes. I can highly recommend it. They do it for a few other places as well. I think they did one for Chicago, one for Iceland. It's really cool. Gastown and the Steaming Clock and the Arcana Bar and the magical fortune-telling tarot cards. Okay, day 3. I'm going to try and hurry up a bit because I'll be here all day otherwise. We walked back to Gastown because we needed to do more shopping, obviously. I love buying souvenirs. I collect postcards and magnets from everywhere I go. And I love collecting artwork as well. So either big prints or like greeting cards that you can use as artwork on your walls. I love creating them from local artists. So I came back with so many like cards and small prints and things of all the places we went to. I just need more walls to put them up in. Maybe I can rotate. But we went to a hipster coffee place, Nemesis. I got London Fog. Weirdly enough, I love London Fog, but I can hardly ever find it in England. But in Canada, it's everywhere. And then we went on a bus tour, a West Coast bus tour of the city, which included Stanley Park, which is this huge park, kind of like Central Park. They have like horses pulling carriages and, well, pulling trolley things. They also have these massive totems, which is the bit we went to, and gift shops. And there's just lots of really wonderful places there. People get married there. Really lovely. I wish we had some more time there. And then we went to the Capilano suspension bridge. Now, let me see if I have written that right, because there was a lot of autocorrect going on while I was frantically making notes during my holiday. So this is quite famous. Yep, the Capilano, I might be saying that wrong, Suspension Bridge Park. It's a big suspension bridge, unsurprisingly, that waves about all over the shop, especially if you've got people, kind of annoying people jumping up and down and like intentionally making it do that. And it did make me feel a little queasy, but we had just eaten a huge thing of poutine, which is like one of, or the Canadian national dish. I'm not sure. Poutine, like fries, cheese curds and gravy. Delicious, but I wouldn't recommend having a huge thing of it and then going on this suspension bridge. There was also lots of like treetop stuff there and like boardwalks through the forest. We got a lot of lifers on our Merlin app added to our life list, the birds. So that was pretty cool. Big gift shop, excellent. Then we're still on the tour, we went to the Granville Island Market, which was very cool. So you sort of go over the bridge out of Vancouver onto Granville Island and they have this like really cool hipstery outdoor market place. But there's like lots of different buildings and there's music and there's food and there's one particular building where there's lots of like indoor market stalls, but then lots of shops around it. Really cool. We did lots of shopping. I got lots of like native Canadian artist prints and stuff like that. It's a nice harbour. Then we got dropped back off at the hotel. It was all very warm and sunny the whole time we were there. We were really lucky. And then we went for dinner at a Thai place around the corner and came back and packed and sorted ourselves out as much as we could in the small space. And for the cinematic AF moment, I've put Capilano Suspension Bridge, Indiana Jones music needed. So it did feel very cinematic, even if it did make me feel a little queasy. So Monday the 4th, we were leaving Vancouver. Vicky was up and out early. She was catching the Rocky Mountaineer train to Banff, 2 days. Me and Ruth considered going with her, but it was a lot of money and we couldn't really justify that on top of everything else. So we instead caught a flight to Calgary, which was like an hour and a half, something like that. And that's where we picked up the lovely shiny red Jeep Wrangler. We met up with the guy. Sometimes you don't meet them. You just go and get the key from like a lockbox and stuff. But he was there. It was really nice. And then we drove to Banff, no issues, about an hour and a half. And checked into the Otter Hotel, which was lovely. This is where we splashed out a bit. It was a 4-star hotel, but it was right at the edge of the main road going through Banff. So it wasn't, I think there were a lot more expensive places there basically, but we were right at the edge. So it was a little cheaper. And like I say, we were splitting it 3 ways, 1 room, 3 ways. But because we were there 7 nights, like more than 5 nights, they upgraded us to a superior room, which was great. We had a load of space, like double the space we had in the Belmont Hotel. We had a little balcony and it was really lovely. And they had an on-site restaurant, which every hotel seemed to have an on-site restaurant, which was good, which you could go to. And we had dinner and went to bed. And I put Cinematic AF was driving towards the snowy mountains with country music on the radio. I created a playlist to go with, but we couldn't get the Bluetooth to work. So for that hot 1 hour and a half, we just listened to a country music radio station. And driving towards snowy mountains in the distance was in our like red, shiny Jeep Wrangler. My dream car was very, very cool. Okay, Tuesday the 5th, we got up early and did washing in the hotel. I was very excited about this because we didn't know if they'd have a laundry room. We tried to find out and we couldn't before we went. And I need to wash my clothes when I'm away. I just hate having like clothes I've been traveling in and all gross. So when we saw the laundry room, when we got there, we were like, yes. We actually woke up at about 5 or 6 a.m. because of the jet lag and went down and immediately did laundry. So very exciting morning. We had breakfast at the hotel restaurant and then got the bus to downtown Banff. And this was really good. The hotel gave you a pass and you got all your buses for free while you were there. And as I said, we were right at the end of the road. So it was only like 5 minutes on the bus, but it stopped us having to do 20-minute walk back and forth or driving and trying to find parking. And like I say, no Ubers or anything like that around here. And we did so much shopping. Banff is a great place to shop. So many souvenir places. Also so many like jewelry shops, clothes shops, everything you need. It's so cute. There are mountains all around. There's the Cascade Mountain in the background when you're shopping. It's really famous. It's on all the pictures of Banff. Just really, really cool. Really fun. Then we had lunch, did some more shopping, got the bus back to the hotel, had a rest. Our dinner was a pot noodle from the gas station across the road. I think we were trying to save money at this point. We didn't want to be eating out at a restaurant for every meal. But yeah, that was probably a low point in the food stakes, but it was very nice. Then Ruth and I had booked a ghost tour for this day because we knew Vicky wouldn't be there and she doesn't like spooky things. So we went and did the ghost tour and it was so good. This woman was like fully dressed up in like really cool outfit and was really theatrical and really made all the stories come to life. Lots of ghosts, lots of spooky things, deaths and murder, obviously, but also some lighthearted stuff, including Herman the Merman, which you can see at the Trading Post in Banff. Basically, there was talk of a spirit under a certain lake, Lake Minnewanka. I have to say that carefully, Minnewanka. And I think no one wanted to go on the lake because they thought it was haunted, basically. So this dude, this well-to-do business dude, I've not written down his name, so that's helpful. He basically decided to say he had found the spirit of the lake and had killed it. So there was no need to avoid it now. So they could all go on his like tour boats and stuff like that. And it's in the Trading Post, the Herman that he killed. And they say it was like a fish and a monkey spliced together, but that's one weird ass monkey. I've never seen a monkey like that, so I don't actually know what it is. Very weird. But they have a sign in the Trading Post saying Employee of the Month, Herman the Merman, and he's been Employee of the Month apparently for the past 5 years. So you have to go and see him if you're in Banff. Amazing. But yeah, the ghost tour was excellent. And then we got back to find that Vicky had arrived from her train ride, which she really loved, going through the Rockies on the Rocky Mountaineer. She said it was well worth it. And then we sat outside. There was like a little pool with like fire pits, like a fire pit area. And we sat out there as it got dark and then went to bed. So that was cool. And I put Cinematic AF, wandering around the shops downtown and having the snowy capped mountains all around. Felt like a Hallmark film, honestly. And then also sitting at the fire pit and looking at the Cascade Mountain, which was sort of, you could see it really easily from our hotel as the sun set and it got dark, was really cool, like out of a movie. Okay, Wednesday the 6th. We went for 2 weeks, by the way, if you're wondering how long I'm going to be rambling on about this, but I thought it'd be good to go through our itinerary if you do ever want to go. Wednesday the 6th, we went to the White Bark coffee shop downtown, did more shopping because Vicky had only just got there, so she wanted to go shopping. We had lunch and then we went on the gondola up Sulphur Mountain, which is one of the main things you can do in Banff, which was, the view was amazing. Snowy capped peaks everywhere you looked, mountain goats, bighorn sheep wandering around, great viewing platforms all around. There was a funny bit where we were just having like a really nice chilled moment looking out over the snow-capped mountains and thinking how lucky we were to be there when two, I don't know if they were Canadian or American kind of lads walked past, and one of them was saying about how he had to use crampons when he walked up the mountain he walked up. He'd obviously gone through this story a load of times or had been bragging about this mountain for years because his friend immediately cut him off and without a beat just went, "No one cares, Zach. And then they were out of earshot after that. And me and my friends just lost it laughing. It was just so funny. And No One Cares Zach became a kind of quote of the holiday. It kind of replaced, we say like, cool story, bro. If someone says something that's really like uninteresting or nothing happens and then there's just silence and then you're like, cool story, bro. So now we say, no one cares, Zach. But yeah, maybe that's only funny to us. But I love little in-jokes like that when you're traveling with people. We had dinner at the Sky Bistro up Sulphur Mountain, which was lovely, amazing views. Then got the gondola down again. Then we went back to the fire pit at the hotel. We ate our treats that we'd bought from the Chocolate Board of Canada. I had like a bear claw, lovely, with the view of Cascade Mountain again. And then we read our instruction email for the next day because me and Ruth had booked to go to a wolf dog sanctuary, Yamnuska, I think I'm saying that right. And they sent us an email about all the things we could and couldn't wear because the wolf dogs love chewing on stuff. And my favourite parts of the email was you're not allowed to wear any dangling lures, like laces and stuff that the wolf dogs might come and like bat or try and eat. So dangling lures was something we said a lot for the rest of that trip as well. Somehow we managed to get into conversation a lot. Cinematic AF of that day was going up in the gondola and the views from Sulphur Mountain. Just incredible, indescribable really. But I took a million photos and videos. Thursday 7th, we had an 8 a.m. pickup for the Banff wildlife tour, but we were still getting up at like 5 or 6, so it didn't really matter. We went to Jack 2 Lake, I think it was called, Minnewanka. Lots of places. We saw some ground squirrels, some rams and ewes, some deer, and we heard some loons. We didn't see them. Loons are everywhere on souvenir stuff and things in Banff. So we didn't see that much wildlife on the wildlife tour, but we made up for it later in the holiday, seeing loads of wildlife while not on a wildlife tour. So, you can't schedule the wildlife. So we didn't hold it against the tour guides. And a lot of the tour guides, a lot of the restaurant workers, hotel workers, shop workers were either English or Canadian, Canadian. Some of them were Canadian, but most people were English or Australian. Young people there on their working holiday visas. So it was quite funny to go literally everywhere you went, you were waited on by either English people or Australians. And a lot of them live together. So we had 2 tour guides for the wildlife tour and they lived together with 8 other people. So 10 people. I wanted to ask how many bathrooms they had, but I didn't. And I think it's sort of like maybe hostel style stuff. So I'm too old for that stuff now. But, people go there and do it for a year and then go home. And it's a pretty nice place to spend a year. Then Vicky went to get a massage and do some more shopping while Ruth and I hopped in the Jeep and drove to Yamnuska Wolf Dog Sanctuary, which was about an hour away. And oh my God, this is one of my highlights. I love animals. I love dogs. I love wolves. And there's a wolf dog sanctuary. Basically, lots of people get wolf dogs, which are wolves and dogs bred together. And they think they can look after them like a normal dog. And when they find out they can't, then they end up in the wolf dog sanctuary. They need a lot of space. They need like hectares of land. They need lots of food, lots of raw meat. Like it's quite expensive to keep feeding a wolf dog. And they're not, you just can't look after them like a dog. So they end up in this sanctuary. And you could go around the sanctuary or you could book to have like a meet and greet with the wolf dogs, which is what we did. We went into 2 separate enclosures. The first ones were low content wolf dogs. So these were 50% less wolf, 50% or less like wolf in the dog. And these came right up to us. We could pat them. We could give them treats. There was one called Yarrow who was started off on the lead because they weren't sure if he was a threat to us. But he immediately rolled over on his back and demanded belly rubs and stayed there the whole time. So they took him off the lead because he was clearly not a threat to us. And it was amazing. And then we went into the high content wolf dog enclosure and they didn't really come that near us. We had to like chuck the treats to them. But there was Nova, who was my favorite, who was 90% wolf dog, a wise old soul. I think he was like 14 and it's huge white wolf dog. And he kept doing little dances every time he wanted a treat, which was amazing. They had a gift shop as well. And what I loved was each wolf dog had their own tea blend. So I bought Nova's tea blend. I haven't tried it yet. I'm sure it's very lovely. Got some other merch as well because all the proceeds went to help the wolf dogs. And it was just such a lovely, lovely thing to do. They were so gorgeous and highly recommend going to visit it if you're in Canada. I think it's the only one in Canada, but I think there were some in the States as well. We got an ice cream and it immediately started raining, so that made us feel like we were in England again, but only for a little bit. Most of the time we were so lucky with the weather. It actually, the day after we left, there was a massive snowstorm on the entire road between Banff and Jasper, which we had just driven down before we left. And we missed out on it and we just had sunshine most of the time and warm weather, so it was amazing. Okay, movie star, real talk. Are you tired of feeling like a background extra in your own life? Then it's time to step into the spotlight and activate your main character era. and I've got just the thing to help you do it. Grab my free Movie Star Alter Ego Starter Kit, your behind-the-scenes pass to creating the bold, brave, action-taking version of you who goes after their dreams like the star of a blockbuster. Inside, you'll discover how to design your alter ego, choose your transformational item, pick your theme song, and build the rituals and confidence cues you need to start living your life like the epic movie it was meant to be. So, if you're ready to rewrite your script, roll camera, and finally take the lead, head to movifyyourlife.com/free to download your free starter kit now. That's movifyyourlife.com/free. Your next scene starts today. And now, let's get back to the action. We went to dinner at Farm and Fire. We had a huge pizza, so we got some to take away for dinner the next evening. And we had some ice wine, dessert wine, famous, kind of just famous for it, or particular that region, I'm not sure. But it's a very sweet dessert wine, very nice. I went to the grocery store and back to the hotel. And we also learnt about the two most famous bears in Banff. So there were grizzlies and black bears. And the boss and split lip are the two main ones, and they have beef with each other. The boss is this huge hulking bear. We didn't see him, but I've seen videos of him. And unfortunately, these bears, they amble along the train lines a lot because some of the trains spill grain everywhere. So they go to eat the grain. Now they have people clearing up the grain as they go. So not as many bears get hit by trains anymore. But the boss has been hit by a train twice and he still lives. He's also fathered, I think, was it 70% of the bear population in Banff? So if you've ever seen Father Ted, I was comparing him to Pat Mustard. He's basically the Pat Mustard of bears. Yeah, he's been hit by a train twice and still lives, but he is getting on a bit now. They weren't sure if he would appear from hibernation this year, but he had been seen when we were there, so they know he's got at least maybe like another year left in him before he hibernates again. And another fun fact, over there, cattle grids are called Texas gates. So there you go. And the cinematic AF moment for that day was the majestic wolf dogs. Just majestic. I don't know what else to say. And they've got their own tea. So there you go. Friday the 8th, we had another 8 a.m. pickup for the Mountain and Lakes tour. So we drove to Lake Louise, and Lake Louise was one of the main places I wanted to go to, but I didn't quite realise how in May it would still be frozen over. It started to melt, but we could have done going there like 2 or 3 weeks later to see the famous blue turquoise water surrounded by the mountains and the famous Fairmont Hotel looking over it. It's a very famous place, and even though it was frozen over, it was beautiful. We got a drink there, we saw more ground squirrels. Then we went to Yoho National Park and we went to Emerald Lake where we had lunch, saw some waterfalls, went to the Natural Bridge. It was a really good tour, actually, that one. The lunch was like a kind of, they put on a buffet for us and they sat us all at separate tables, and it was like you eat with the group, get to know people from all over the world, mostly England and Australia. So the tourists, as well as people who work there, mostly English and Australian, but there we go. Some people from the States and other places in Canada. But then we went back to the hotel. Me and Vicky went and hung out in the lobby next to the fire for a bit. She read, I sorted out like loads of millions of my photos of the wolf dogs and other things I'd taken, the lakes. Then we ate our leftover pizza and watched ice hockey. It was the playoffs when we were there, so there was ice hockey on like every night. So we had that on in the background a lot. And the cinematic AF moment from that was driving through the mountains and all the views, all the lakes, the mountains, everything. Everything was just so cinematic. I couldn't even pick one particular one from there, but Emerald Lake was particularly lovely. That had melted quite a bit, and so it had beautiful blue and green water, like bluey green water, and it was just lovely. Saturday night, we got up, had breakfast in the room, trying to save some money. We bought some like cereal and got some like solo cups and some throwaway spoons to have cereal in the room. Then we went back to Lake Minnewanka for a cruise, the lake where Herman the Merman supposedly was caught. And that was amazing. Just lovely views. That one had melted, which is why we could go on the cruise, which was good. And there's this bit where they sort of stop in the middle of the lake, they turn off the engine and you're just silent for a minute and you're meant to just enjoy the nature and the scenery and the lake spirits, maybe Herman's relatives, I don't know. And that was just a really lovely, lovely moment. Then we popped back to Two Jack Lake, made friends with an American crow. I've got in my notes. We went back to the Otter Hotel, had lunch next door. So the next door hotel was called the Canoe, and their on-site restaurant was called Sudden Sally. So we went there quite a bit as well because it was right next to ours. And it only became clear at the end of the holiday that the whole time our friend Ruth thought it was called Sudan Sally. So that was quite funny. We kept singing Sudan Sally to Mustang Sally. Anyway, we went into town. We got got an ice cream from the famous Moo, like cow shop. Like everything is cow themed. We also got a big bag of the brand was Anne of Green Gables, but I'm not sure how she got into this particular type of product. But they were chips covered, crisps. I'm going Canadian. Crisps covered in chocolate. And we were like, oh, I'm not sure about that. And some people in the queue, some American tourists told us, no, they're really great. And we got them. And oh my God, they were amazing. So good. We went to the trading post to see Herman and the Merman, who we'd heard about on the tour. And then we got the free bus to the Fairmont Banff Springs Hotel. So Fairmonts are everywhere, all over there. But the one in Banff it looks really spooky and gothic. It's like something out of a horror movie, honestly. It's really cool though. And it came up a lot on our tour. There were lots of ghosties apparently there. So they had lots of shops there as well. So we went shopping, we had a drink outside on the patio and then walked back via Bow Lake Trail. And then we sat out and looked over Bow River for a while. There was a husky on the other side in the river cooling its paws while his human looked on. We were duck watching, we were getting birds on our Merlin app. And we just sat there for like half an hour or so, just like taking in the view and just really relaxing. You could see all the mountains in the background. It was lovely. Then we went to the Dusty Boot Saloon, which I'd seen before as we walked past, and was like, yep, that's all cowboy themed. I've got to go in there. And they had half price cocktails at $6, which was like £3. So I had a couple of them. It was all decorated, giant cowboy boot disco ball, just really cool. And there was a John Bon Jovi lookalike there as well. I don't think it was him, but he looked a lot like him. Then we had dinner at Sudan Sally again. I kept leaving to go and do my washing in the hotel next door. Did some more washing. I was like, may as well. And then went to bed. And the cinematic AF moment for that was the cruise on Lake Minnewanka because it was just beautiful. Okay, so the next day was Sunday the 10th. We got the bus into the town, coffee at the White Bark while we waited for a shuttle bus to take us back to Lake Louise. So we didn't realise when we booked our tour before that we would already have gone to Lake Louise, but never mind. We went to Lake Louise. We took the shuttle bus because parking was like $45 unlimited. And the shuttle bus was a lot cheaper and we knew we didn't have to worry about parking. So we got there, had another look at the lake. It had started melting, but it was still very frosty and beautiful. And looked around the shops. They had lots of shops there. And then we had, the reason we went there was to have our lovely afternoon tea. So we couldn't afford to stay at the Fairmont. We did splash out and have an afternoon tea, which you sit in this beautiful restaurant and look out these amazing windows and these amazing views of the lakes and the mountains. Lovely. So it was afternoon tea. I had chai tea, normal sandwiches, scones, desserts, and a glass of sparkling wine as well with the amazing view. It was amazing. It was Mother's Day that day in North America. And they were giving roses and tulips out to all the women, whether you were a mom or not. So we got some too, which was very cute. And that was just like bucket list stuff, really. We looked around the shops some more, got the bus back to town, went to the grocery store, and then had a hot chocolate at the Good Earth Cafe while waiting for the bus back to the hotel. And I put the cinematic AF bit for that day. It was the afternoon tea at the Fairmont Hotel with the amazing views out over Lake Louise. That is bucket list stuff, as I've said. And it was just very, very lovely moment. Monday the 11th, we left Banff and drove. Oh, that was a crow. I don't know if you heard that in the background. We still have crows having beef in our garden. We drove 2 hours from Banff to the middle of the Icefields Parkway. So there's one long road from Banff to Jasper. And it's probably the most stunning scenery I've ever seen on one road. Like the mountains everywhere, the snow. I just can't even explain it. It was extraordinary. And in between Banff and Jasper is the Columbia Icefield Explorer experience. And you get a coach to the Explorer truck, this huge truck with giant tires that drives to the ice field, basically this big snowy thing adjacent to a glacier. And you get out and you take lots of photos and videos. I tried to take nice video of me in front of the Canadian flag to use as a reel, and then got really windy and the Canadian flag just completely attacked me, which was hilarious. And I used that in a reel recently. Then you get back on the truck and then you get a coach to the Skywalk, which is like one of those clear glass floor walks out over the sort of river and you see all the mountains and everything. It was just amazing, amazing scenery. On the way back to the gift shop and the Starbucks and the sort of like the main building, we saw a grizzly bear on the cliff at the side of the road, scaling the cliff. I didn't even know they scaled cliffs like this. A lot of people missed it. I managed to see him, but it was kind of like the back end of him as we went past. So we were driving back that way afterwards on our way to Jasper. So we were driving along and we saw lots of people on the side of the road. And if you see lots of people on the side of the road, or even one person parked on the side of the road on this road, you know you need to stop because you know there's some wildlife that people are looking at. So it's a good clue that something's afoot. And we got out and the bear was still there, but he'd gone a bit further up. So he was very far away from us. He was very small on my phone. I had to zoom in right in to see him. And he was hiding behind rocks and trees and things. But then one moment he came out and walked along and everyone was like, oh my God. I took a video and it was really cool. We were very happy because we wanted to see a bear, but not from close up. And after that, we drove to Jasper, and it was kind of surreal and quite sad because they had a big fire in 2024, a forest fire, and it was just like 30 kilometers of burnt trees as far as the eye could see as you were driving into Jasper, which is quite spooky and very sad. But as we learned, we knew that fires were good for forests, but this was a huge one, but it was very good for the forest in the long run. Not so much for the town. One guy lost his life, sadly, and they did find a bear and a deer who sadly passed away, but all the other animals managed to skedaddle. And funnily enough, we went to one lookout area and there was a wooden outhouse, a toilet, and it had survived where everything else around it had burnt down. It was like a miracle outhouse. But yeah, so it's sad to see and very spooky, but it was good for the forest in the long run. We checked into the Tonquin Inn Motel because a lot of things burnt down, like literally in the town as well. There's not much accommodation there. So we stayed in a motel style place, which was fine. It was very cheap, good location. I mean, Jasper's only small anyway. It was quite spacious, actually, the rooms. That was good for us. And then we went to the on-site restaurant Whiskey Jack's for dinner. Cinematic AF, I've put driving along the Icefields Parkway was spectacular. I cannot describe it any other way. It was truly spectacular. Incredible. The ice fields were amazing. The skywalk was really cool. Seeing the grizzly bear was like something out of a movie. And the Jasper's burnt forest, it was like a sad type of cinematic. It was very surreal driving through it, but you could imagine it being a scene in a movie, basically. Tuesday the 12th, we had a breakfast at a nearby hotel coffee shop and then went on the Sky Tram, which was like the gondola in Banff, but smaller and much more rickety and old school. Still lots of good views from the top. Lots of dogs everywhere, which is good. I had hiker's poutine, which is like a veggie poutine at the top. While we were there, we saw some lakes, Edith and Annette, which we found out. So after we got down off the Skytram, we drove to them. And that was just a really lovely, peaceful afternoon. There weren't many people there. We made 3 stops looking at 2 different lakes. And it was just gorgeous. One of them had like an actual proper sandy beach on the lake, which was lovely. It was a lovely, warm, hot, sunny day. And we just chilled there for a bit. And this guy came up with Finnegan the dog, who said hello to me, which made it even better. Got a lot more birds, a lot more lifers on our bird app, Merlin, as well. Then we drove back to the hotel and went out to the shops. It wasn't far. You could walk there in like 10, 15 minutes. I did some shopping, had ice cream from Grandma's ice cream place, which was lovely. I made the mistake of asking for 2 scoops and got given a cup full of ice cream the size of my head. And then we did more shopping, had dinner at the Raven Bistro, which we went to twice, highly recommend. Great restaurant, the Raven. And then went back to the motel. And Cinematic AF was, that day was the Skytram, like the really retro gondola things, and chilling at the lake, which was one of my favourite moments actually, even though we hadn't planned it, we didn't know it was there, and nothing really happened. But we just had a lovely time just chilling there and looking out at the beautiful, beautiful scenery. So Wednesday 13th was a guided tour of Moraine Valley. And they picked us up from the motel. And this is one where we saw all the wildlife, even though it wasn't billed as a wildlife tour. You just can't help but see lots of wildlife where you're going around Jasper. It's great for animals. So it usually starts by going to a certain lake, I believe, and possibly going on a boat, but it was frozen over. So instead we did like a walk, hike along I've put Athabasca River, I think is what it's called, which was great. We saw some deer and elk and things, trout in the river. And then we drove around to lots of different spots and the disappearing Medicine Lake, which sounds very mystical. It is quite mystical. It sort of disappears and then comes back. And we saw loads of animals. We saw this huge moose, which was, if you've ever seen a moose, they're like all legs. And he was just chilling, walking down the side of the road. Deer, elk with big antlers, marmots, very cute, bald eagles, loads of animals. Then we came back to town, had lunch at the Raven Bistro again, went shopping again. You know, most of this is window shopping, but we know. We went to the Moraine Range for drinks and bits and bobs of food. And this was a really cool place. It was like a whiskey place, but I don't drink whiskey after drinking way too much of it when I was 18. But we had some food there and I had like a garden cocktail, which was very green and seemed quite healthy, even though it wasn't because it was booze. But it was this really cool place that showed old black and white movies on this huge screen. And there was this really, really, really funny part. Ruth had gone to the loo, so she didn't see this, but me and Vicky were watching it. It was this old black and white film. People were like shooting each other and dancing and I don't know, all kind of Western stuff. And there's this really hilarious part where a man is like chasing someone and he rides on a horse over to a house. The horse stops abruptly and the man gets thrown through this tiny window. He like breaks the glass and goes through this tiny window that only just fits through, and it all happens in a second. And it was so unexpected. And me and Vicky, it was just, you know, when you laugh so much, you're just crying, tears going around your face. We were like that. We were a hot mess. Our waiter was like, what the hell is wrong with you? We tried to find out what film it was, but we couldn't. The waiter didn't know, and we didn't know who to ask. And Uncle ChatGPT was no help in this instance. But, sometimes you just need those moments where you just laugh until you cry. And it was just amazing. And cinematic AF moment was the big moose casually walking past the car. Thursday 14th, we were leaving Jasper. We did a quick photo shoot with the Jeep and these red heart-shaped sunglasses I bought specifically to do a photo shoot with the red Jeep. You've got to have content for social media. Then we left Jasper. We drove 30 minutes to this Goats and Glacier lookout. So the way we drove back was the way we drove there. There was only one road. There's not much else you can do if you're trying to get back to Calgary, which is where we flew into from Vancouver and where we were flying out of. And we'd missed this lookout on the way there, but we wanted to go and see it because it's called Goats and Glacier. So we thought, we might see some goats around. Stunning views, beautiful mountains, this lake with like trees in the middle on this island, just gorgeous. We were there for quite a while and it was like coming towards the end of our trip. And I was like, just take the time to take in this beautiful view and not really think about anything. So that was worth it to go there. But then just as we were driving off, we noticed people looking at the other side of the road. And when you notice that, you always stop, see what they're looking at. We were in the car and I wasn't driving, so I was looking at what they were looking at. And I was like, it's only a deer. And then I went, no, it's a bear. It's a bear. And we'd seen a grizzly and we were hoping to see a black bear. And here he was, Mr. Black Bear or Mrs. Black Bear. So we parked again and hopped out to take photos and videos. And I don't recommend getting out of a car to take photos of a bear, but he wasn't like right next to us. He was across the road in the foliage and he was paying absolutely no attention to all the people. There were loads of people there, like taking photos of him and stuff. So we took loads of photos and video. Absolutely gorgeous, amazing to see in the wild. And then he started getting a bit closer. There was still a whole road in between us and the bank on the other side, but we were like, it's time to leave now. So we got back in the car. We drove back to the Columbia ice fields where we knew there was a toilet and a Starbucks, very important on a road trip. Then we drove to Lake Louise, not to the Fairmont or the lake, but to the village where they had some more shops. And then we went to via a lookout, which was over Frozen Lake. There was this huge floofy raven there who just like hopping around, very tame. I wanted to make him my best friend. We got a maple coffee. I love everything maple flavored. Then we drove back to Banff. We had dinner at this place called Park. Got a photo with a big Banff sign and we drove back to Calgary, which was very stressful. I hate driving in cities at the best of times. I hate driving around North American cities because you're in giant cars and everyone else is in giant cars and you're on the other side of the road and there's usually loads of, 7-lane highways and stuff like that. That is just stressful. And I was driving at this point and I could not wait to get there. It was quite late by the time we got to the Calgary Hotel, which is the Sandman. The Sandman downtown hotel. We eventually parked because we were over 6 foot in the Jeep and we couldn't get in the normal car park and the overflow car park for all the big beasties was full. So we had to go all the way around and finally park in this other place. And then the app wouldn't work and it was very stressful. Everyone was very tired, but we got there, checked in, went to bed. Cinematic AF moment was definitely seeing the black bear. That was amazing. And also driving along the Icefields Parkway in the snow with our Canada playlist blaring. By this point, I'd found a cable that would connect to my phone because the Bluetooth still wasn't working, and we got to listen to some of the massive Canada playlist I had put together. Friday 15th was our last day. We had breakfast at Moxie's at the hotel, which is the on-site restaurant. Then we said bye to Vicky. She had to leave to get an Uber to the airport. She was leaving several hours before us. Ruth and I had a night flight, which I hate. So we had all day to sort of kill time, I guess. We left our cases at the hotel. We got a drink from Tim Hortons, Canadian staple, then got an Uber back in the city. So there were Ubers again because I did not want to drive in that city more than I had to. We got an Uber to the Inglewood Bird Sanctuary. Yes, we wanted more lifers, but it was gorgeous. We walked around there for a bit, beating sun, like really hot day. Saw some Richardson's ground squirrels at the front, very cute, prairie dog looking things. Then we got the Uber to the shops, went to a vegan cafe, although Ruth almost went into a weed shop accidentally, and I pointed out it was called 420 and had a big leaf on the door. A few shops, got the Uber back to our hotel, got our cases, got the car, and then I had to drive back to Calgary Airport to leave the car. And I hate driving around airports. I hate driving around North American airports. So that was a bit stressful. We got there. Jeep owner managed to meet us again. He sort of checked the car out, make sure we hadn't left anything. And then we're there at the airport, ready for our night flight. Terrible night flight, didn't sleep at all. But we had splashed out on an airport transfer to and from Heathrow. It wasn't actually that much more between us than when I usually get the train and the tube and taxis and all that, which adds up. And I knew after a night flight, we would be exhausted. Last time I got back from Arizona, I had a night flight. I didn't sleep. And then I had to get the train home and all the trains were cancelled. And I was just dying. It was awful. So the dude picked us up and drove us home, and it was amazing. And then, I was back home, and that was the end of our Canadian adventure. Over 10 years in the making. I know I've rambled on a lot. I'm nearly at the hour mark, but I didn't want to stop and turn this into 2 episodes. And again, if you want to go to Banff or Vancouver or Jasper or anywhere around there, Calgary, this might help you with your itinerary. So at the end of my notes, I made a list of all the animals we saw. So there's red squirrel, mule deer, cow elk, bighorn sheep, ground squirrel, grizzly bear, like a big stag with antlers, mountain goat, marmot, wolf dog. I mean, wolf dog wasn't in the wild, but I did it. Bald eagle, loads of birds, moose, chipmunk, trout, black bear, Richardson's ground squirrel. So I think we did pretty well with wildlife. And I put my favourite bits were Edith Lake, the Banff gondola, afternoon tea at the Fairmont, the Wolf Dog Sanctuary, seeing the grizzly and the black bear, the ice fields and the skywalk and that whole Icefields Parkway Road, the Vancouver flyover, the Arcana Bar in Vancouver, the ghost tour in Banff, the cruise on Lake Minnewanka, and seeing all the wildlife in Jasper. And I highly recommend going there. We went in May, which is like the shoulder season, so things were cheaper. We didn't want to leave it until sort of July, August time, because that's when the wildfires usually happen, if they happen. And we couldn't go any earlier, really, because everything was frozen over. But as I say, you can never guarantee what the weather's going to be like. We were hot and sunny most of the time, occasionally cold, freezing on the ice field. And then the day we left, there was a big snowstorm. So you never know what's going to happen. And I wanted to do a bit at the end with like the themes and things that I learned. I'll just do these very quickly because I've been rambling on. But basically, number 1 is nature makes you feel tiny in the best possible way. When you're looking up at a huge mountain, huge lake, wildlife everywhere, like the scale of it, you just think like how amazing is this planet? It's awe-inspiring. Number 2 is that your favourite films, shows, books can become blueprints for real life. This all started for me watching a very mediocre rom-com called The Right Kind of Wrong, and it turned into this incredible trip, so that's amazing. 3, cinematic moments are often tiny or random things. It could be looking at a famous lake or a bucket list item, but it could be laughing at an old cowboy film in a bar with your best friend until you cry. It could be sitting around a fire pit. It could be seeing a husky cooling its paws in a river. It could be eating leftover pizza and watching hockey playoffs. It could be a weird cocktail. Like, those are the things that make trips memorable. Number 4 is why shared chaos and friendship makes trips magical. I love solo traveling. I'm a huge advocate for solo traveling, but there's nothing quite like traveling with your friends and having all the in-jokes and going around saying, "No one cares, Zach," and making sure you have no dangling lures on your clothes. And all the stories you get to share, the views, you get to share the memories, you get to share the in-jokes. It's all about connection. And number 5 is that wildlife feels cinematic because it's unpredictable. Seeing these animals in real life in the wild, there's nothing like it. I love the Wolf Dog Sanctuary, but obviously they were in enclosures. They were very well looked after. They had lots of space and everything. Seeing animals out in the wild, but especially the black bear and the grizzly, it was just incredible. And you don't get that by sitting at home and never stepping outside your comfort zone. So yeah, I just wanted to go through that basically. I had some other notes, but it's all stuff I've already said. So just to end, I want to make a note. Obviously, not everyone will like a trip like this. I love trips where you get to go and explore and do things and do new things and see incredible sights. Occasionally, I like a trip where you just sit and read and do nothing. Mostly, I want adventure. That's what I want. So I want you to think about your Banff adventure. What is your equivalent? What is that one place you've always wanted to go to, maybe because you saw it in a film, that's a kind of bucket list trip that you keep putting off because of the price or whatever reason. And then I want you to think, is there a way I can make this happen sooner? Because I could have put this off for years and years and years. And it's only because my friend Vicky said, "I'm going, whether you come or not, are you coming?" that I was like, oh, I have to go now. Just don't put things off. We never know what's around the corner. And if there's one place that is calling to you that you know you really, really, really have to go to, I would encourage you to do everything in your power to make that happen. So what's the trip, experience, or adventure you promised yourself you'd do someday? And can you make that someday as soon as possible? Thank you for listening. I hope this gave you some ideas about some trips you want to go on or adventures or new things you want to try. Let me know if you have any feedback or if you've been, and if your experience matches up to mine. You can email me at action@movifyyourlife.com or DM me on Instagram @movifyyourlife. Thank you again for listening. Please share this with anyone who you know would love to go to Canada or to Banff or that area. And until next Movify Monday, I will see you on the red carpet. Thank you so much for listening to the Movify Your Life show. Before you go, don't forget to sign up for the main character memo mailing list at movifyyourlife.com/list for exclusive tips, treats, and behind the scenes magic. And if you enjoyed this episode, I would really appreciate it if you could please subscribe, leave a review, or share this podcast with a friend. Let's spread that Movify message far and wide, because everyone deserves to live an epic life fit for the big screen. I'll see you next week for another Movify Monday. Until then, that's a wrap.